Welcome to Pennsylvania's pre-service DVD for guardian ad litems. The reason that we're bringing this DVD to you is to assist new guardian ad litems in learning about the very important practice in the dependency system. The purpose of the DVD is to give you a snapshot of Pennsylvania's dependency system. It should be used in conjunction with other resources and, of course, continuing education when possible. The way that this DVD is laid out is to show you a snapshot of each type of hearing in which you would practice in the dependency system. There's the shelter hearing, the adjudication hearing, the dispositional hearing, and the permanency review hearing. In order to meet the CAPTA requirements, after the completion of this DVD, you should sign an affidavit being provided to you with this packet and provide that to the president judge of your county. In addition to this DVD, there are other resources that you should utilize in your practice in dependency court. First of all, there's the Judicial Bench Book. A copy and a link is attached to this DVD. Make sure you take a look at that. This is the book that judges use, and it lays out best practices in Pennsylvania. A guardian ad litem should be comfortable with child development. The resource companion to the Pennsylvania Bench Book is a great resource for you to read about developmental issues with children. Child development, how to talk to youth, and grief and loss are all extremely important qualities that a guardian ad litem must master. Again, I would refer you to the resource companion of the Pennsylvania Bench Book for assistance with those matters. There are many legal resources that you can reference in addition to this DVD to assist you in your practice. All are linked right from this DVD. One is the Judicial Bench Book. This is a great resource written by judges in Pennsylvania for judges in Pennsylvania that outline the best practices. Make sure that you are very familiar with the juvenile court procedures, and also utilize the Office of Children and Families in the Court's website. This is a great resource. For example, they have courtroom scenes that you can use with your clients that are age appropriate to show them where they'll sit, where the judge will be. This can really help with communication when preparing your client for courtroom time.
As you proceed through this process, you will learn more than you can possibly imagine. And it is your responsibility and obligation to represent your client, the children who are before us today and in the future. They are the most vulnerable population in Pennsylvania. In 1875, the church elders in New York found Mary Ellen in a flea-infested, urine-stained bed. They brought a case before the court in New York and asked that she be removed from her parents. The court turned them down. They said there was no law on the books which would allow the court to remove property, meaning the children, from their parents. Undeterred, the church elders filed a request under the cruelty to animals law. The child was removed from her home, and I will say thrived from there forward. That was the beginning in 1875 of the movement for child protective services. New York passed the first law in the country in 1875. In 1975, the state of Pennsylvania passed their first Child Protective Services Act, and that is what has developed as a body of law. You are one of the representatives of the children to take that law.
Children and Families in the Courts is an office that was created by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania in 2006 to really help support local dependency court judges and child welfare administrators and Pennsylvania's dependency system overall to enhance the practice that was happening for abused and neglected children in our state. If you're watching this DVD, I'm very excited for you because you're coming into the dependency system in a time in Pennsylvania that is extremely exciting. We have so many judges involved, so many child welfare administrators involved in enhancing the practices that are occurring for abused and neglected children, and they're all being strongly supported by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. So we're very excited that you're watching this video. And I'm personally very excited about it because this DVD is really the end result of a priority that was set by the State Roundtable. And you probably throughout the DVD are going to hear a little bit about the State Roundtable. But that's a group led by our Supreme Court Justice Max Baer that sets the priorities for enhancing our dependency practice here in Pennsylvania. And one of the very first decisions that group made was that we really needed to provide support and additional education to the attorneys who are practicing in these courtrooms. So from that conversation, this DVD has been developed. I'm also especially excited if you're watching this DVD, that means that you have been selected to practice in your local dependency courtroom. What that also means is that your local judge has identified you as being one of the finest, potentially finest attorneys in the county, because representing children and representing parents in dependency matters is an awesome responsibility. But clearly your judge is seeing you as a person, as a professional attorney who is up to the challenge, and we're excited that you're joining the ranks of the wonderful professionals in Pennsylvania who represent children and who represent parents.
I wanted to talk to you today more holistically. It's fashionable and appropriate to look at child welfare from the eyes of the child. But I want to talk to you about looking at this subject from the eyes of the person on their deathbed, because what occurs during youth actually impacts, ripples through all of life. So we have two people in my construct. One is the individual who's lived the successful life, and he's on his deathbed and he thinks about his wife or husband of 40 years, his children, his grandchildren, his many friends, his many accomplishments professionally, personally, and the like. And while he obviously would rather not be there, he's satisfied with the job well done over all those years. Across the proverbial railroad tracks, we have another individual. And he can't quite believe what occurred some way, somehow throughout his life. He thinks back on the children he fathered but never knew, the women that he slept with but never loved, the transient housing, the time in and out of jail, in and out of drug rehab, and the entire litany. My suggestion to you is that there is a point in all of our lives, a fork in our roads. One road leads to the successful man, the other road leads to the unsuccessful man. And you, believe it or not, as child advocates, can be instrumental in children traveling the successful road, the road that leads to a life well led, rather than the road of despair and dysfunction and ultimate dissatisfaction with and the true tragedy of looking back on it all and saying, how did I waste my life? So unnecessary, and you can have a difference in it, as difficult as that may be to believe philosophically. So let's talk about that for a second. As I said, I think there's a proverbial fork in the road. I think the fork in the road oftentimes is in the courtroom where you're going to be functioning. And I think the default road, somewhat despairingly, is the road to dysfunction. Now, why is that? Why is the default road to dysfunction? I think the reason is that it's easier. It's the path of less resistance. What's the easiest thing to do? Not go to school, not do your homework, not brush your teeth, not go to church on Sunday, sleep through it, and the like. So left to their own devices, the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 10-year-old is not going to do those things. They're going to run with the gang and not go to bed on time, not get up on time, not go to the dentist, on and on and on and on. So why don't most of us end up that way? The answer is really easy. It's because our parents will not allow it. They will fight us. They will control us. They will do what is necessary to force us down the successful road. And once we get used to it, once we get used to getting up and going to school, once we get used to doing our homework, once we get used to caring about our grades, the road becomes progressively easier. But it's not easy in the first step or 2 steps. And yet that is in the courtroom. Now, for the kids that you're about to go and represent, the challenge that you have is to make sure the children go to the right road. The fork, as I said, in the road is in that courtroom. And it matters what you do. It matters that you insist that siblings stay together. Insist on it. It matters that you insist that there be a family finding to find competent people in that family who love that child, love those children, and will parent them. It's important that you use the practices that you're being taught. We know they work. Specifically, family finding, to get the right people in the right room to raise the child, and family group decision making, so that that family can do all that they can to be successful with that child. It matters that that conference is successful and that those kids go home with their parents. And finally, it matters that once they go home, that we not just forget about it, but that we scrutinize them, we support that family, we provide services to that family, that we use our money so that that family can love their children and those children can be with those people that love them, rather than use our money for these children to drift from foster care to foster care, stranger care to stranger care, until we're all surprised when they aged out dysfunctional, so that the road they take is the road to success and not the road to failure. That's your challenge. That's what it matters. Every child matters. They all have a sacred life. They have a right to full potential, and it's up to you. It's up to you to try to develop that full potential. So good luck to you. Go out there. Use the practices that we've taught you. Use family finding. Use family group decision making. Don't let siblings get split. Demand services. Demand reviews. Advocate for your client's ultimate success. And I suggest to you that the lives you save, you will never know about, because that is not who makes news. And you will save a lot of lives. So my best to you, and go and make a difference. And when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to look back and say how much money you made, but you can look back and talk about the kids you saved.